PROMs is an acronym that stands for Patient-Reported Outcome Measures.
In short, it's like regular blood tests, based on which doctors and patients take decisions to improve the physical health of an individual. We could say that PROMs is a tool that can contribute to better quality of life.
PROMs that measure people's quality of life provide important information regarding their experience with HIV treatment over time, including how other non-HIV related issues impact their daily lives, covering issues such as stigma, depression, anxiety, sleep disturbances, and other problems. Today, chronic treatment for HIV is safe and effective. The question remains whether or not it is possible to develop even better drugs that address some of the outstanding issues that people living with HIV face on a daily basis. After all, the patient is the expert. And I say patient in inverted commas, as most people living with HIV do not really identify as patients.
EATG conducted research to investigate PROMs in HIV R&D from the perspective of the community, and decided to do so with a three-pronged strategy followed by several validation exercises for the recommendations.
Let's look at the first part. From the literature review, we've learned that PROMs are increasingly being used in clinical practice and research, including new medicines discovery. We learned HIV-specific PROMs are important because they address issues that are relevant to people living with HIV. On the left, you see the levels of patient and patient advocate engagement that has been adapted by Wilson et al. Cited in Adario et al. And these are compared to the greater involvement of people living with HIV on the right, or sometimes known as the meaningful involvement of people living with HIV. On the left, you see a hierarchy of patient involvement in PROMs that shows the highest level being the driving force. Under that, there are further degrees of involvement that are also important but not as high level. On the right, you see the greater involvement of people living with HIV model. This is an older model from 1999, but you see a similar hierarchy with higher involvement. EATG distributed a survey in November and December of 2020 in both English and Russian. 41 people from 16 countries participated in the English research, and 55 people from 10 countries responded in Russian. The survey asked two main questions. First, what disturbances you currently experience with treatment, which refers to side effects. Secondly, what kind of improvements you would like to see in the treatment in the future, which refers to product issues. Most participants stated that they were satisfied with treatment, but most also wanted to be relieved of side effects they experienced. There were similar preference ranking identified, such as the demand for fewer pills per day, the need to hide when taking the treatment, the request for fewer medications, for example going on a dual or a monotherapy, the stated wish for fewer side effects, and the preference for a long-acting medication instead of a daily treatment. The third aspect is the input from stakeholders. EATG spoke to several groups of stakeholders, including academic advisors, clinicians, pharmaceutical companies, and HTAs, Health Technology Assessment Agencies. The following main points were found. Firstly, PROMs might become useful primary endpoints for medicine research and development trials in the future. But for the time being, PROMs are used primarily as secondary and exploratory endpoints.
An endpoint is the primary outcome that is being measured by a clinical trial. A clinical endpoint is an outcome that represents direct clinical benefit, such as survival, decreased pain, or the absence of disease.
Secondly, challenges in using PROMs include the short timelines of medicine research and development trials, the homogeneity of trial participants, and the difficulty to attribute some patients' reported outcomes to a specific treatment arm of a trial. And lastly, PROMs need to be linked to clinical outcomes in order to become meaningful to decision makers, including regulatory bodies and HTAs. PROMs are an important and increasingly popular way to gather patient experience data. PROMs can add value to improving the quality of life of people living with chronic conditions or diseases by preventing, identifying, and treating comorbidities. PROMs for HIV R&D are currently useful for secondary and exploratory endpoints. More research is needed to make PROMs more useful as primary endpoints under R&D conditions. Investments in patient organizations should be made to increase their capacity to co-produce and implement PROMs and to lead the advocacy for engagement in these processes. More work needs to be done to identify the outstanding needs of people living with HIV with respect to their treatment, health, and well-being, and to link these with future medicine developments.